Hey, is anyone else getting background
All right,
sound?
this is WordPress Naperville Meetup. This is April 2023. Thanks for coming tonight. We are going to be talking about what's new in WordPress 6.2, some basic stuff first, and then some digging into a bit into the updates for full site editing. So, hi, I'm Claire. I'm the organizer here for WordPress Naperville, and Stacy Kernwell, the other organizer, will be doing the full site editing section of this presentation. We're going to switch after my basic intro stuff. And if you're on Zoom, feel free to type a question into the chat or just sing out, and we should be able to hear you. Sorry about the background. I forgot my microphone today, so we don't have anybody else.
You.
Oh, Stacy, maybe if you mute
someone
Stacy. And
just
yeah, everybody else is muted. Sorry about that. Can you hear what I'm saying? Yeah, okay.
Yes, but it sounds like someone was doing their dishes.
Okay, so if you type into the meeting chat, or if you just sing out with a question, I'll be able to hear you. And Stacy, if you're online in the Zoom, if you could just alert me if I happen to miss a question, that would be great. Okay, so there are, if you're looking at articles about WordPress 6.2, which was released a couple weeks ago, if you're looking at them on the internet, the changes in WordPress 6.2 apply to, there's kind of basically two categories of changes. There's the changes for full site editing, which is where WordPress is going now in its sort of, in its long-term roadmap. They're trying to get more into sort of a Squarespace or a Wix type of experience where you have control over your entire site right from the edit panel without having to write any code. So full site editing is what we mean when we're talking about that sort of Wix builder experience, building the entire page, including the navigation, the header, and the footer. What I'm going to be talking about first are the changes that apply only in the edit screen, and these apply to every WordPress site that's been upgraded to 6.2, regardless of what theme you have. The changes that Stacy talks about with full site editing will only apply to sites that specifically have one of the new full site editing themes. So I'm just going to show you the edit screen and talk through some of these. These slides will be posted on the meetup page afterwards, and along with any notes or anything people have or questions that get answered. I need to move all my windows out of the way. Sorry. All right. First, changes to the edit screen. Geez, am I even sharing this on Zoom? Oh, sorry about that. I am very confused by the Zoom setup. Changes all the time. I've lost all my windows. Okay, and I haven't even shared my screen. Here we go. Okay, sorry about that. Like I said, if anybody has any questions or notices me saying something wrong, feel free to yell, and I'll make sure that my volume is up so I can hear you. Okay, so we're looking at the editing screen. I'm sorry about this. There's got to be a better way to arrange all these little windows. Yeah, I do like seeing people, but I need to drag all my Zoom out of the way. All right, first off, we have changes to what apparently is called the kebab menu up in the top right corner. It's called a kebab because it's three things in a line, as opposed to a hamburger menu, which you see for mobile icons, which is three stripes in a stack. So in the kebab menu, we have a new setting, top toolbar. This is the toolbar for each block. As you navigate around your page, you see this toolbar appears, and it has settings specific to the block that you've highlighted. If you click top toolbar, that toolbar has relocated to the top of the page. See where it is just below my header there? And it stays there as you click around the page. All your block settings will be in that one location there. I don't know if I like that better, but it's just an option you have to maybe make the interface work a little easier for you. If you get tired of it, unclick. It toggles back to going above each block. These other three modes here are different ways to basically hide parts of the admin panel as you're working. Spotlight mode grays everything out except the particular block you're looking at. Full screen mode hides everything except the edit interface. It hides your left menu and it hides your top admin bar, which I rather like. So I'm going to turn those back on. And distraction free does something similar. It hides your columns and your other ways of inserting blocks and editing. It hides your settings column and it hides your add block column over here. If you get lost and you forget where that goes, just either hit escape or mouse up to where the admin bar would be near the top of the browser window, and it'll show you your options again, and you can just toggle it back to. If you wanted to do distraction and full screen, then you're in this weird white space. It's like the void. Maybe this is easier for you to work. I think if you were if you were working on a really big page with a lot of text, this would probably make things simpler for you. Or if you're, one of the things we talk about in web accessibility is cognitive load. If you are a person who needs a certain amount of minimalism in order to concentrate, this would probably be easy for you. There's a question. Can you repeat questions from people in the room? Oh, absolutely. Sorry about that, Sonia. Kathy was just commenting that she actually doesn't like this, that she sees this as sort of blank and minimalistic. And I think we were mostly agreeing with her. Thanks for reminding me, Sonia. So I'm going to change it back to regular because I don't like this either. I like to see all my menu items and know where I'm going. Okay. Sticking over in the right column, this little icon here that says settings and looks kind of like a screen with a right column used to be a gear. It's your right column toggle. So this was something that I had to explain to my clients because some of them were a little bemused by this, that their settings icon had gone away and it's replaced by this, which actually makes more sense because it is a right column. It's not always settings. It's kind of settings, but everything that you are used to over here, the page tab has your page level or post level settings like the URL, the permalink, the date, the author, featured image, attributes, and so forth. And then the block panel is the particular block that you have highlighted. Again, apparently my image is highlighted right now. Another new change, you can see we go from page and then I'm looking at the block panel here, is that some blocks, but not all blocks, have two new tabs in the right column for settings. They have a settings tab that's a gear, and then this styles tab that's sort of a half moon. If anybody has a better name for that, I'll use it, but it's a half moon for me. So this doesn't seem to be applied really consistently right now. Supposedly, the settings tab is going to have things like you can see this paragraph doesn't even have two tabs, it has one tab. So it's applied a little inconsistently. Some blocks have it and some don't. And in general, it's supposed to be things like size and position are in the settings tab, and then things like typography and color and other style filters that are built into WordPress would appear in the styles tab. So it's a little adjustment, but hopefully it'll make sense and become second nature as we learn to deal with it. Let me go through my slides and make sure where I'm up to. Left insert menu. These changes, this set of changes I quite like. So, you know, when you add a block, let me just add a block right here. It says type / to choose a block, and you have a choice between adding a block with this blue plus here or adding a block with this blue plus up here. This blue plus has some neat new features. It has a new tab, media. And this media, the images menu right here, will show you images right from your media library. So if you want to add a media, you just have quick access to whatever has been uploaded to your media library. Colin, we are able to add multiple columns. I'll get to that in a little bit. That's a routine, that's a core feature of WordPress blocks that I don't believe has changed in WordPress 6.2. I can do a demo after this part of the presentation. This one reminds me. So if you want to add images, you just add them right there. This Openverse, this is kind of neat. This is connected to a library of Creative Commons licensed images. So this library is It's actually built by Creative Commons. It's available at openverse.com, I think, or perhaps .org. And there's 600 million images that are free to use. So if you have a particular need for a cat with piano, these are very important. You can grab yourself a free to use image of a cat with piano. If you need ferns, many images of ferns. So if you, many of us are in the position of needing royalty-free images for our websites, just to add interest, break up huge blocks of text, decorate things a little, use as background images. This Openverse tab is now available for you to use. Openverse.org, Kathy says, thanks. Another new thing over here is in the block patterns. Block patterns are a library of pre-created design chunks that you can either create yourself in code and add to your theme. If, for example, you're building a site for a client, or you can use one of the ones that have been already created by designers, site builders, and submitted to the WordPress patterns library. This interface used to be a pull down or drop down, and now it's a list, which I think is a little easier to understand because you can see the categories all at once, and it gives you more of a sense of what's available to you. So the way to use the block patterns is still the same. You just find one that looks good. Most of them I don't like. I like this one, okay. And you can see I've added now a green image with a pear, and it's completely editable. So even though I don't like this, nope. You can put your own words in it. You can replace the images, which would be probably in the settings tab for this. You can replace the colors. You're basically putting these patterns in your site, and then they're yours to work with as you'd like, replacing images, colors, and so forth as you want. So that's been around for a little while, but the interface of being able to add it so easily from that left column there is new. There are new categories too. I think the whole thing is a little more organized than it was. Probably my favorite addition for 6.2 is the changes to this guy here. These 3 lines represent an outline, like with indentations, and it's called Document Overview. And this list view has been there for a few versions of WordPress now. This lists every block on your page. So for example, if you want to be able to find all the images in your page, you could scroll through them, or you could just find them here. It's useful when you have a very complex layout with columns, for example, columns that have maybe another column inside or an image inside, and then the image also has a paragraph underneath it. If your layout is complex, this is a very easy way to navigate around. And now the header titles appear over here, so you kind of know where in the page you're going. You can see that it's highlighting. It's highlighting over here on the left as I navigate around and choosing the block for me. So I know exactly where I'm clicking. You don't have to sort of guess your pixels with your mouse so much. What I really like, though, is this new outline view. Check this out. So for search engine optimization and web accessibility, it's very important that your content have good markup, meaning that your content its HTML is correct and is structured in a way that search engine bots like the Google crawler can read it, so that Google knows what your website is about and can index you correctly. And also so that any users who are using assistive technology, their screen readers or the technology they're using can scan the page and figure out the structure of it and convey it to the user. For example, a screen reader, if a person wanted to quickly scan the page the way we would visually, they would look at the headers on the page. They would look at H1, the title, they'd look at H2, H3, and the screen reader would allow them to skip back and forth between those very quickly without going into the detail at the paragraph level. In order for that to work, the headers need to be in the correct order. And you can see here, I've got some headers that are out of order. For example, I go from H3 to an H5 in 2 places, and WordPress has flagged that for me in this window. So I can fix that by, it actually says incorrect heading level. So I can fix that by going to that header, Harry, and switching it to an H4 and I'm actually going to switch Walter to 24. Walter, it's not going to catch what is basically a mistake, but not a technical mistake. Walter is also a cat and should be at the same level as Perry, but because it's not AI, the browser doesn't know that. It hasn't marked that as wrong. So it shows you, if you make a mistake in page structure like this outline will show you, and it'll also give you a good hint for SEO. It'll show you which parts of the page Google is really going to pay attention to when it goes to index your page and associate keywords with it. So for example, my header cats I know is now given extra weight on the page because it's a header rather than just bold text. I have clients who do their own content, and this is so much easier for me to explain it to them like this. Before, I used to have a browser extension that would show me the headers, or I'd actually have to ask them to go in and look at their header tags. And this is great. I was showing a client today and she understood immediately that the yellow is bad, fix it. And you can click right on it and fix it. I love this one. Okay, any questions about that outline view or any of those navigation things? I'm going to talk a little about image captions now, which has an update that's a little confusing. Go ahead, Jackie.
A little lost. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Where are you exactly? I'm trying to make sure that I go back and review that section. What is this section called?
Do you mean my presentation or the screen?
On the screen where you are now.
I'm on a page edit screen. Jackie's just asking, thanks, Stacy. Jackie's just asking what screen I'm on. So let me just update real quick and show you how I got here. So starting at the very top of this WordPress website, which is, it's just a blank website that I use to demo things. There's nothing, it's just the theme 2023 with some of my demo content and a bunch of pictures of cats. And so starting from the dashboard where you first log in, I'm editing a page. So I went to pages, and then my page is somewhere over here. It's my what's new in WordPress 6.2. So I'm clicking edit, and that brings me to what I would just call the edit screen, or the page edit screen. And I am saying page edit, but it's just like the post edit screen. And if you have any other content types like events, it's going to be similar to the events screen, but a little different because events have times. So a lot of what you see on the screen applies to all the content types on your site. If you have them, not all sites do. Okay, so let's look at image captions, because image captions, the content strategist I work with, I forget the statistic, but he is always quoting a statistic saying that image captions are some of the most read content on the page. Just the way we scan something like a magazine article or a web page, our eyes are naturally drawn to captions because I think they're just sort of standalone and they're next to an image. So it's sort of an easy way to grasp what the page is about. So it can be really helpful to have informative text in your captions. Here I've got a picture of a cat with a caption underneath. The new thing that is happening, two new things with captions. First off, if I go to add an image, and I'm going to use my new media images, grab this image, and then click here to make everything go away. First off, caption is enabled by default. And right now, it's pulling the caption that I set in the media library. Now, I can change this. When I edit this caption on this page, this caption is saved just to this page. If I add this media on a different page, it'll have the other caption. It'll have the first caption. Because if I go to my media library, oops, this caption here is sort of the default caption. When you add an image, that caption appears, and you can edit the caption per display of the image to have different captions appear in different places. There's a new caption icon that appears. There's a new caption icon that appears right here. Now, this, you might think, see how it's highlighted right now? You might think that if you click this, it makes your caption, it hides your caption and then brings your caption back. That is not what it does. If you click this icon, it will delete the caption on this page. So, yeah.
Come back with,
no,
oh.
No, if you click that icon, it will delete the caption. It will not only hide the caption, it would also delete the caption if you entered it in this page. Now the caption is still there. If I go back to the media gallery, the default caption is still there in the media gallery. I am going to leave the page. That's just the browser warning me because it's paranoid. The default caption is still there. I would have to physically delete it from this screen to actually delete the caption. But if you've just spent some time typing in captions on pages and you think that you're just going to hide them and see how it looks and bring them back, no, that caption will be gone. So be warned. It's a little weird. It's not how you would expect it to behave. I don't know if it's a bug as such, but
if you hit the
back
button on top of the undo button, I mean, not back.
This one, undo?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what?
As long as you didn't update it.
Yeah, I didn't click save.
Yeah.
So Stacy asked what happens if you click the undo button. I actually just now learned that that was an undo button. I've never clicked that. So if you toggle your caption, click update, toggle your caption back, it's gone. Click undo, my caption comes back. So it's saved somewhere. Yeah.
If you leave the page and come back, I wonder.
I would not expect it to be there if I deleted my caption and then came back the next day. Any questions about image captions? Just be cautious when you're editing them and make sure that you've saved it and be cautious with that caption toggle.
Can you style it?
The caption, you could style that. Can you style it here? I think you would have to style that in the CSS at the theme level. And some of what Stacy shows us later might have caption styles in it that you can do without code. And also you can always do it in CSS.
Does that block have this, it doesn't have the style settings?
This, Stacy's asking about, does this block have style settings? It does. It has maybe not as many style settings as you'd expect and none that apply to the caption that I can see. There's alt text, image size, but nothing about the caption. So you're going to be depending on some other more technical solution for styling image captions. Or the theme that you use might have a different style that you already like built into it. This is just 2023 out of the box. Okay, I'm going down to real quick. There is a block that I like a lot called Query Loop. And it is super handy for creating lists of posts. It's basically like a mini blog page. Let me pop it open here on the left. A query loop includes a post template and that it includes whatever post elements you want. But what it does, the point of it, query loop. Here we go. A query loop lets you select a post type, like a page or an event or whatever, and it lets you describe what the layout would look like. And then it just goes and grabs them for you. Whatever you've defined, you can define a category, you can define a tag, and it basically creates a little like mini blog page for you of those with those filters you've defined. Super useful. Anyway, my point is in 6.2, they've given this a new name called post list, which can be a little confusing because it's called post list. It's also still called query loop. It says post list here. It says query loop here. They're the same thing. That's what's new for 6.2. There are two names for the same block, posts list and query loop. I think it's just because query loop was confusing people, but it's still called query loop in the left column. So it's still confusing people. So sometimes when there's an update to WordPress, they sort of iron out the kinks over the next few weeks. And as people, notice and realize that things are a little weird. Okay, another change is the navigation block. Now, this was described in WordPress 6.2 announcements as improvements to the navigation block. And my sarcastic response to that is they could hardly have made it worse. It was pretty bad. It was really confusing. Now it's less confusing. So a navigation block is a block that lets you put a menu anywhere you want in the page. In older versions of WordPress, before 6.0, I believe, you can only put menus in widgets or in your header, basically in places that your theme had designated as menu places. So now you can put a navigation block, a menu, anywhere you want. It's just adding a block, navigation. It will, I think by default, it'll grab the primary menu that you have set for the header on your website, but it will also, over here with this kebab menu under, so if I look over at the block menu on the right column, click menu, it'll show me all the menus I have on my site, with some with auto-saved names, so which aren't very useful, and it'll let me pick any of those. And what's nice is it actually, because navigation 4 doesn't tell me anything, navigation 2 doesn't tell me anything, but it's actually swapping them out as I click on them, so I can tell which is which. It didn't used to do that. This is really nice because it was useless before. Many of these menus are of no use to anyone. So you can add a menu. I'm going to delete this other one. No, I'm going to delete this one, which I just added. You can add a menu. And what's also new is this nice list view over here. Before you had to sort of click around inside this weird little tiny little menu bar and try to figure out how to add a plus sign there. There was like a sort of hovering plus sign that you had to manage to hit correctly. And now you can just go over here and add new, or just go right in here, I guess. Actually, geez, I was doing this today. Oh, I know what the problem is. The problem is I have this locked, which is a nice new feature too. Let me set up a new one. I'm gonna have it use, no, there we go. Okay, so here's my plus sign to add a new one. Plus sign also appears down here, and it gives you your choices of different kinds of links in a more conventional drop-down menu. Let me see if I can get this further up the page. That's not helpful, is it?
You could do the other plus.
I'll use this one.
Oh, wait, no, it's a different menu.
Look at that. It's actually differently. Yeah, this is the navigation block is not perfect yet. Yeah, it won't, it's adding it as soon as I click this plus, but if I highlight over here, if I make sure my menu, it's still real twitchy, better than it was, but still real twitchy. Oh my goodness, come on. I'm not even clicking these things. They're just popping up. My goodness. Okay, I hit escape and that made them all go away. So now I've got all these extra links here. If I wanted to add a link, here we go. You can see if I click in the right column, which is what I recommend, don't click the one that shows up in by the block. It gives you choice of page link, custom link, page list, little search icon, little social icons you can add, which are always nice. So you can build a variety of different menus out of these little mini blocks. If you click page link, it will let you pick, excuse me, pages from your own site. You just start typing the title and it'll go find your page. These are all, none of these actually match, whatever. Excuse me. And the advantage is that this list view is a new way to see the organization of your menu. So that's nice. That new way of adding is a little easier to work with. Another new thing, geez, it's just still real twitchy and not super intuitive of what's going to happen when you click in a certain area. But if you have, this sort of thing is useful for if you have a very long page and you need to create like links between different parts of the page, or if you have a subsection of your site and you want to set up a navigation between maybe 4 or 5 connected pages. This is where this kind of menu can come in handy. Also new with navigation is the ability to lock it. So I'm going to grab this navigation. I'm over in my left list view. And if I click the kebab menu here, I have this option lock, and this will stop anyone from editing the menu, including me. Is that the one I just locked, or am I looking at a different one now? Yep, see, here's my lock icon. And over here, it should be limiting me to not edit this.
You didn't hit the apply.
Did I not hit apply? Okay, so let me try that again.
I don't know.
No, it does make a difference, and it's still pretty confusing if you're not used to it. So navigation, I'm going to lock it, apply to all blocks inside. Okay, so what it did was it, if you don't have this, it's going to lock your menu, the overall menu, like it's going to be, there's going to be a menu there, but anyone can still go in and change the actual links inside the menu. If you click this here, apply to all blocks inside, that locks each individual link within the menu. So that's what you really need to do to lock the menu down so that you don't accidentally edit it. And here you see now the lock icon is appearing next to each of these, and I can't change my menu, which is what I want. Also new in 6.2, I think, because I hadn't seen this before, was that now when you make a change to a menu in the navigation block, it applies to every instance of that menu throughout your site. At least it did while I was testing it today. So I can't guarantee that it'll work on everybody's site, but this is, as far as I know, new since a couple weeks ago, because it used to be really confusing how you would change a menu, then save it, then you'd have to add it back to the page. And now, for example, if I unlock this, I'm going to unlock everything. I'm going to add a new custom link. I'm going to actually add it down. Oh, this drives me crazy. Okay, I'm adding it here. I'm just going to add a link to Google. And click update. Okay, so now this is changed here. This, it also got added to my top header menu because this is the menu that I was displaying in that part of the page. So that is a huge jump in usefulness, because before you'd had to basically edit the menu on each page it appeared on, which defeats the whole purpose. Now a change to a menu wherever it appears on your site changes that menu everywhere on your site, which is much more useful. And it's kind of how we expected it to act all along, and it didn't. Yeah, Jackie?
Is there a limit to the number of, I guess, the page you were at before, where on the top of the heading? Yes, is there a limit to the number of items you can add to that page?
Not that I'm aware of. If they are, it's in the hundreds. It's a technical limit. There's, of course, a limit as to what's going to be useful or good. Usually about 8 is where usability kind of stops and people start just mentally skipping your navigation. But yeah, you could have, I actually had a weird bug on a site the other day where it added every single page on their site to the menu, and there was like 240 pages in their menu for some reason. It was really weird. I think it was a database copying error. So Jackie had asked if there's a limit to the number of links you can have in a WordPress menu, and I don't think there is. If there is, it's a very high number that you should not be approaching for the sake of usability. Sonia's asking, how easy is it to create a mega menu? It's, well, use a plugin. It's not easy. It doesn't happen in WordPress core. If you want a mega menu, you will need to get a mega menu plugin, or you will need to have a developer help you install, and then they would have to design and configure a mega menu script. Does anybody, if anybody has a recommendation of a mega menu plugin, please type it into chat. I haven't used one in a long time, so I couldn't recommend one. I do know that some themes come with mega menus. In my projects, I use Adobe's accessible mega menu script, but I have a competent front-end developer helping me install that. So, and it still takes 5 or 6 hours. A mega menu. Oh, I will describe what a mega menu is. That is an excellent question. Who's got a mega menu? I think these guys do. So a mega menu is something like this. Instead of just a drop down, see how it's got like its own little sort of content section. This is what we mean when we say mega menu. And it doesn't need to be, this is quite an elaborate one. It doesn't need to be as fancy as this. It's just any time that when you click on a normal menu, your top menu, you get a sort of pop out with more than just a drop down effect. A pop out with some sort of content or preview or graphics or anything like that would be called a mega menu.
A lot of subcategories, it's better to have a long drop down.
If you have, Kathy's saying, if you have a lot of subcategories, if you have a high volume site, a mega menu can be really helpful to help your users figure out how to navigate through it. Because in a dropdown, I'm just gonna real quick, whoops, that's not a real site. I'm just gonna real quick show a regular website dropdown. You don't want to really go more than 2. Once you go to a 3rd level dropdown, people have to, I'm sure you've experienced it, where you have to make your mouse move the exact right way or the menus all collapse on you. It gets so irritating and it's practically unusable on a phone. So with menus for usability, it's best to stick with 2 levels, the top level and then 1 drop down. And then if there's anything else, yeah, you're looking at a mega menu or some sort of internal navigation or something to help your users navigate, because 3 levels of drop down menus is not usable. Okay, let me make sure, let me see where I am in my, I might be getting to the end of navigation block. Post list is query loop. Group blocks can be sticky. This was something that Stacy and I were testing earlier today and it didn't work. And then today it did work for me. So it worked for me when I was testing just a little while ago. So group blocks are sticky. Now this might only work because I'm using 2023 right out of the box. What I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to do it with this. I'm going to take these 2, no, just you 2. Oh, the navigation block is so irritating. Okay, I'm going to take this. I'm going to add it to a group. Now, if we look at our outline, this is a group, which is sort of a container for multiple blocks, but it only has 1 block inside it with a navigation, with this header that says navigation block inside it. Now, the point of this is that group blocks now have a sticky option. So I'm going to make sure my group is selected. I just unselected it, didn't I? Group. Make sure my group is selected. And under position, default, sticky. And it says the block will stick to the top of the window instead of scrolling. So let's see if it does do that. So here I am scrolling down my page, scrolling. I'm going to get to navigation block. Bam, it's stuck. That's so handy. It would be even better if I had applied it to something relevant like a menu, or who knows, maybe an announcement, an important announcement that you have on your site. Anyway, built-in stickiness for groups that works at least with 2023, which I believe is a full site editing theme, or a block theme as they're called now. So this might not work on every site, but you could give it a try and see if it works for you. Okay, I'm about done with my part of the presentation. Does anybody have any questions about what we've covered so far?
Could you go back? Could you add an image to the group and make it sticky? Like a background image?
Sure. Yeah, let me see. Henri has asked if I can go back to that group and add a background image and make the background image sticky too. I think I can. I mean, I haven't tried that, but it should theoretically work. So group. And it's going to be under styles. Let's give it a background. No. Background image. Okay, it's not giving me the option for an image. Let me see what I could do. Yeah, so that would be a different block. So let me create. So it's called cover, right?
Can cover be sticky?
Cover is a block that lets you put an image as a background. What's a good background image? Whatever. So I've got a background image. Inside cover, I want to add. Can you add things on top of cover?
It's the paragraph of default, I think.
Oh, here we go. Heading. This is a paragraph. I can't spell the heading. Let me turn that white so you can actually see it. Wow, this is confusing. Okay, paragraph. Color, text, white. There we go. Heading, text, white. Okay, close enough. Okay, so now I've got an image with some text and a paragraph on it. Imagine it doesn't look terrible. And I want to make this whole thing sticky. So if you wanted a background image to be sticky, you would need to assign it to a block that has that capability to use it as background image, which I believe is cover and maybe median text and maybe columns, containers. The container or row block, I believe, also will allow this. Anyway, so I have my blocks that I want to be sticky, and I'm just going to go to my kebab menu for the block in the toolbar and click group. And that kind of wraps them in a group. And then under position, sticky, update, and then let's view the page. Yep. Now I have, they're each sticking on top of each other. Yes, use this with caution. This might make some people a little dizzy.
Talks about the index in case
Yeah.
figured that out yet.
Okay, well, that's it for the basic changes to WordPress editing for 6.2. We're going to disconnect me here and hook up Stacy, and Stacy's going to talk about some of the things you can do with full site editing in 6.2, which are more flexible and a little more advanced. So let me get unhooked, and Stacy's going to hook her up. Actually, for everyone on Zoom, you probably won't notice a difference. Thanks. Yeah.
I'm excited about that navigation.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
I should probably turn my mic on. I'll put my headphones in and then you might want to.
Okay, I'm going to say 5-minute break. And I'm going to stop sharing.
Oh, if I have, does this provide power to or just HTML? Just HTML, right?
And I will unmute. Oh, you have to turn your volume off. Well, that's I'd argue that's possibly true. Yeah, I don't think you're echoing. Yeah, that was pretty hilarious. Yeah, and did you type like 5-minute break or something? Because I can't see people now, so you can. Oh, you're not even watching either, Kathy. You can't wave the rabbit. So, Claire, I'll need you to tell me when we can proceed. Can someone in Zoom say something real quick so that I can make sure my volume's working? Or my speaker? Speaker.
Oh, okay, testing. 1, 2, 3.
Anybody?
Yeah, hello.
Oh, hey. Okay.
We're here.
Wow.
How's that?
They're all talking. I need to fix that. Okay, there we go. Oh, hi. Okay.
Got it now?
Hi, Nancy. Hi, Ken.
Hey,
Hi, everybody else. You two are the ones that were unmuted. Yay. Okay. All right. All right. Let me go back to. All right. I have to share my screen, right? I want to share that screen though. Yeah. This might be fun. I think I have to put you all over there first. Hang on. Hey, oh no, they went away. Hang on. Share first. Where's the my see, okay. UX lesson of the day. If you put your tools on the bottom, they're so often like just cut off because sometimes I'll have my like window just down like a few pixels and buttons on the bottom just all right. Lots going on here. I think I want this one. And then I will
Oh, that's sharing.
start. Can you see the flower so far?
Yes, one big flower. There we go. We'll
Now do you see a slide? Okay.
Yep.
Let's do it. All right. Well, today I learned that, oh, you know what? One moment, please. I want to show my notes because I prepared some good notes for you all. All right. Today I learned that in November of 2022, they dropped full and they just want to call it site editing. But everything I looked at had full site editing references, and I'm so used to saying that, I might continue to do that. But this is going to be a brief overview of site editing. So what is site editing? This is going to be like super high level. I'm going to just kind of barely gloss over like all the things involved. You're not going to walk away from this knowing how exactly to make a block-based theme, but hopefully you'll walk away with knowing maybe what's involved to see if you even want to start approaching block-based themes. When I say block-based themes, they're the same thing as site editing. It's just this whole, fun new world of terminology where everything sounds the same. But it's basically what you see is what you get, making the design as part of the editor. And the difference with what we were doing for the past few years with just Gutenberg, you could design in the content areas, but you didn't have like that header and footer involved. So now it's kind of, you can see like everything, you can edit and see everything. So this is a theme made up entirely of blocks, a block-based theme. We no longer have these like meta boxes that, take content, strip them away from the design, where maybe some people prefer for it to be, so that everything is structured nice and perfectly, but we give the editor a lot more power to make decisions in the browser. And you also have less of a need to be more technically advanced to be able to create some of these themes. You might not have to hire a developer or a designer. You have a lot of the tools yourselves if you don't want to do that. So yeah, this includes areas outside of what we would normally style, which was the content area. And now we can edit header and footer as well. So one of the challenges to fully embracing a site editing experience is sort of wrapping my head around like some of the differences between like what we were doing for the past few years and how it compares to the new block theme approach. So I thought maybe we could go over some of the differences. So in the classic theme, you would write PHP file. PHP would be your tool to display templates and display template parts. Well, with block themes, you now can write that in HTML, which feels like a big barrier, especially because you don't actually have to write this HTML. WordPress actually like spits it out for you and you can copy and paste it. So that's pretty nice. Both the classic and the block themes use a template hierarchy, and I'll go over that in just a little bit, what that means, what that looks like. Again, the classic theme would use PHP functions, template tags to display content. You would pull things in through functions. And now you just create, I hate that word. You create a block by clicking and typing, and it's much easier to do things now in the editor. Before time, you would write, you'd have to use the loop, the query loop, and have to query all your posts in your database. And now you have that awesome block, the post list block that Claire introduced us to, but I have query block because I didn't know the name changed until 5 minutes ago. There you go. Again, the old way of doing it, you would use a lot of if else conditional writing in PHP to like target, like if this is an archive or if this is homepage, do this, else show this thumbnail or whatnot. And with the new way, you would use the block settings sidebar panel to achieve those types of results. There's a lot more here, so we're just gonna breeze right through all of them. But there is a list, and I included it as a link in that little icon of the iMac, I guess that is, if you would like to browse that list on, I think, WordPress.org somewhere. So like I mentioned before, templates have the same template hierarchy as what we used before. And for those people who have been in the WordPress world for a while, templates have always been a thing. So you think of a template as the archive.php file or your index.php, which would be the default homepage if there was no front page. And there's like this hierarchy that maybe is best captured by Michelle's graphics that she created forever ago. And I think people still use. I know you can't see everything very well, but if we zoom in here, this should be, if anyone's developed a WordPress theme themselves before or looked at the files within a WordPress theme folder, you'd be familiar with archive and single, and at least these ones in the blue. And then as you go over to the green, it gets more specific. Like maybe you have a category template file because you wanted to display the category description, for instance. Or you could do a custom post types, which I think are the things in orange there. Oops, let's get forward. So when looking at 2021, which was not a full site editing theme, block theme, however you want to call it, this template file would be something like this page.php, and it's just loose in the theme folder. If you open that file up, it might look something like this. I stripped out some of the comments, but basically the old, let's call it old and new, even though I know that's not really it, but that's kind of it. The old way to do it was you would declare which template this was in the top. So this would be a page template. You would go and use the WordPress get header function to retrieve your header. You would use this get template part function to go grab a template part, which is, we'll go over what that is in a moment. And then you would grab the footer as well, usually. So that is what the old way would look like. And then in block themes, templates still control layout of post page, custom post types on your site. But now we're using HTML to do that. And it's just easy. It is easier. Like this is a huge leap forward for like like people don't want to like dig in. This is one thing I feel like people do like. Maybe not everyone. Now this looks so much worse than that file I just showed. It doesn't have to look like that. Well, it does sort of. So you see a bunch of like the white highlighted areas are the WordPress block markup comments. It doesn't get rendered. It's just telling WordPress what to go show. And so you see here, these yellow arrows are pointing to the template part saying, hey, go the same thing that was like get header. This is how WordPress would do that now. You don't even have to know this though, because WordPress will write this for you. You can create it in that WYSIWYG editor and just hit copy block and paste it into this file. The requirements though, it needs to be saved as an HTML. It could be saved as a PHP file, but you would need to have the opening PHP tags and whatever. You could just paste whatever you create in the block editor into this file, save it as page.html. But the caveat is it needs to be in a folder called templates. Before you could put it anywhere as long as it knew where to look. You didn't care about structure. But now we say, at least by default, this is in templates. I don't know if you can reroute that, but why do you need to do that? If you have a page.php with the proper markup and you don't have page.html, it will fall back to using that page.php file. So if you're using a classic theme and you want to add some of the site editing features, you can do so without really even changing any of those templates in your theme currently. All right, and then this arrow here, the blue arrow, is pointing to the post content, which is basically what you're gonna put in the editor. And then the left part is saying, hey, go grab the footer, which is the template part as well. In the new block-based theme with full site editor, not even block-based theme, full site editor, this is gonna be really hard. This is what the interface, once you log into WordPress, will look like. When you hover over appearance in the WordPress sidebar, there's going to be two options. One I think is theme and one is editor, unless you've installed some plugins that like also add things there. But when you click on editor, it opens a list. I think it opens a page before you get to this one that you see here that will say like templates and template parts. And then I went in to manage all templates is what you're seeing here. And this is a theme that we could talk about like how to approach thinking about which themes to use and how to structure that later. But this theme I'm using was forked from Brian Gardner's Frost. Awesome theme, Brian, thank you. And so it came with some of the templates here, and I added a few as I went along. Let's see here. All right, so if you make a change, so all of these, I should say, all of these are files in my Finder or in the project root, and they can be edited in the file or can be edited here in the site editor, which we'll briefly walk through. But there's, you know, issues with, you know, like how you want to treat those moving forward. You can certainly edit in the editor, and when you do, that means your file isn't really used anymore. It basically will save your changes as like the source of truth unless you clear the customizations you may have made. So let me see here. It saves it as a new custom post type called WP_template. And if there is a customization, if you've changed something in the editor from what the theme originally had, it will show up with the customized label underneath. So now you know that there are changes here. If that theme, if you're using a theme that has updates, if you update the theme, it will not override your override. So your override is the highest priority. So when you go to update the theme, your changes are still there unless you like reset the customizations, which is an option that I'll walk through here in a little bit. So there you go. So if you click kebab, clear customizations. We'll talk about that. That's like one of the weirdest transitions mentally for me to make here. In the people, are you typing that in Zoom? Okay. That was a screenshot. Yeah, but we'll jump into the actual so we can play around a little bit later. Templates are made of template parts and content. Template parts are reusable pieces that you find that are very consistent across like many pages. So like your header, the template part can be a template part. The footer can be a template part. Anything that used to be in the old way of doing it, it would be like content page.php. So like it will go, you know, save what you want to do on the page in the small little chunk and pull it into the bigger template file. So these are like mini pieces. Yeah, question in the room. You can't necessarily have, oh, good. Thank you for profit. We're getting used to this hybrid model. Can you make the entire site a template? Every page will use the template, but the content that you put on the pages is going to have to be different unless you want all of the same pages. But the whole site can use one template, the same template, but the content you put on the page will be different. If it's just a paragraph, then it's almost the same except for what's in that paragraph. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question at all? You can have 5, well, I don't know if there's a limit to how many. I mean, performance-wise, maybe. But you can also have lots of templates and just minor changes. Like say you have a page, a contact page, but every page on your website has a contact us form in the footer. Well, maybe on the contact page, you don't want that form on the page and in the footer. So you might create a separate template with the footer without the form or something like that. And we can walk over some other examples of like when you would want a different template for like the same page type. There's a way you can export the entire site, like all the site settings, and probably the content. You can export themes and import them elsewhere now with all this new way of doing it. You can almost design the entire theme in the browser now. Like you can almost have an empty folder, project folder, which is kind of like wild if you do a lot of the site editing stuff in browser. But that also means you gotta make lots of backups of that database because we're relying a lot. And any change you do that is a database change is not saved in version control. So think about that. I know that most hosts will do automatic hourly backups, but something to keep in mind now more important than ever. Old way of doing it, template parts would maybe look something like this. Again, this is 2021 theme. There's a template parts folder. It didn't have to be, but it could. And then they structured it because they had a lot of different template parts. And so this is how they would do that, and then create a PHP file at the end. That would look a little more busy, something like this. A lot more of that PHP template code, grabbing different. You can also put a template part in a template part, nested template parts, which you can still do. So that's all very similar in how you can think about it. It's just where you go to edit it. But the same structure is there. So if you used templates before, you can still use them now. But now, in addition to having them HTML, you can also edit them in the browser. So that's kind of nice. If you used template parts before in PHP, you can do that now, but in the browser and in HTML. So in block themes, template parts are still container blocks used to display other blocks using HTML. If you'd like, you can still use PHP, but they give you the option to use HTML for the template parts. Those HTML files will be stored in a folder called parts. So you have to have that structure for it to know where to go grab it. Again, you can create these template parts in the editor, copy everything, paste it, save it as whatever.html in that parts folder, and now you have a template part. Again, if you customize it in the browser, you can do so, but once you edit the file, if you ever edit that file again, that change will, in the file, will no longer take effect until you clear customization. And we can take a look at that also here. Okay, so the new template part markup would look something like this. In this specific example, I already had a header file in my demo, so I made a header too. And I've learned since, and I would love for feedback, but I don't think there's a way to change slugs of deleted template file, template or template parts. So you're stuck with that header 2 slug forever. Any post or post template? But like on the post page, you could change the slug, right? Oh, but you have to restore it. So there's no way to restore this to change, but there's no way to even rename this, even if it's there. I think you can rename it, but I don't think it changes the slug. Even if it's available and you click rename, it doesn't change the slug of a template or template part. Little trivia for some geeks out there. I'd love to know because I was trying to do that earlier.
Basically like making names unusable because they're saved in the database.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. So here we can get in all my CSS nerds. I would love to have like a round table with you. But as you can see, there's a little bit of that WordPress inline styling going on here because I created this in the editor and I copied it and pasted it. But you can see where there's like the style padding top of this weird CSS custom variable, which is great. I love that they're using custom variables. But now there's always this padding on this markup, and it's in a template part. So thankfully, I can edit that. It is less handy when we'll look in a few slides from now, but we can certainly have a discussion about that. Or hey, you can create a template part out of a block pattern, which we haven't discussed yet. But that's pretty easy. I mean, I don't know exactly why you would want to, but I mean, if you plan on reusing this in other areas that aren't template part areas, then maybe that comes in handy. So here is the template part screen in editor, or in the WordPress editor. This is what it would look like. So the difference between this and the last one you saw, I mean, it's very the same for our purposes, but you'll see that there's a few that have my avatar there that say Stacy, as opposed to the theme name, which was FSE 2023. And those were created solely in browser. I didn't make an HTML file for the call out and for the footer with CTA. Those were created in the browser. So that's why the different icons are there. I found that very nice because one of them saying, hey, this is from the theme, and hey, this is from human. I'm not looking at any of the comments, but I do hear beeps. So Claire will wave at me if I need to stop and address anything. And again, kebab menu, if you have a customization like you see here, you can certainly clear that if you made some change that you did not want to make. Now let's dig into one of these. I might have, no, okay. So if we were to click on one of those template parts, actually, I don't know if this is template or template part. Doesn't really matter because it looks about the same. Well, this is the page with footer CTA. So this is a template that we're looking at, but I wanted to show some of the new editor features that you'll see here. one of the newer updates for WordPress 6.2 included the colorization of these template part icons. If we take a closer look here, you'll see that the things in purple are the like more reusable things. So they wanted to make sure you knew you were on something that is not just on one page, that this is going to potentially affect other pages on the site. So they want to call your attention to it. The header only template parts can be either general, header, or footer. So there's specific areas reserved for header and there's one for footer, but everything else is general. Now, another trivia question for any geeks out there, this header template part shown here is a header template part in the header area. I don't know why I am currently getting the general icon, but maybe it's a glitch. But I can walk you through that to prove that it is a header specific template part. There's a few different ways to do the same thing in WordPress. So maybe I'm just missing something in like theme.json, perhaps, I don't know. All right, the footer only icon you can see on the bottom has like the filled in rectangle on the bottom. The header one looks the same, but the header filled in one would be on the top half of the icon. The icon next to testimonials is a reusable block, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And the testimonials one is the general one. The call out is the filled diamond is a call out, and that's the general template part. Testimonials were the reusable block. I don't know if I said that backwards or not. Okay, block pattern. We will like dig into like playing around with a file too. So if you're still like, I don't know the difference between the template part and a block pattern and whatnot, we'll dig a little into that. Block pattern. So they're predefined block layouts. You can use them in the inserter tab where you have all your WordPress blocks. There's another tab Claire showed us earlier. It says patterns, and you can create your own patterns and put them in there, or you can grab the WordPress ecosystems patterns that are available. You can also shut that off if you want to deregister everyone else's patterns and only have your custom patterns in there, or your themes patterns if you're not creating a theme yourself. If you downloaded a theme from somewhere else, that theme likely has patterns along with it. This is what the pattern inserter sort. Oh, actually, what am I showing here? Oh, creating a block pattern. So let's say you took a bunch of WordPress core blocks, like this group block and paragraph blocks. I think these testimonials are all just like paragraph and maybe, yeah, I don't think there's any headings. It's just, might be a block quote, but I think it's probably just a paragraph. And into a group. It's just saved into a group here. So we're gonna kebab that while it's selected in the sidebar and click on that copy block menu item that you see there on top of that drop open. Then what you do is you go over and open an empty file, and you're gonna paste the contents of that file starting at line 9. Now, because I know you're all super savvy and you can go to Google and say, how do I make a block pattern in WordPress? You'll be given those top 8 lines of code to paste on top of that file. So you don't have to really worry about that. The thing you do need to worry about is it requires the title, because that's what shows up in the block inserter when you go to insert it, and the slug, which is basically, I just have my theme name here, and then whatever word you want to use, because you maybe will refer to this later and you'll need that one word to use. So this one's called team, and I named it team.php. The optional things are stuff like categories, which will tell WordPress which of those categories of the block pattern inserter that Claire showed with all those like menu options, like which one it should show up in. You can create your own, which is done here. I wrote custom, but now that there's a lot more categories, I might not have to make my own. I would maybe use one of the existing ones. And yeah, viewport with, you don't need that. It just tells it like how to preview it, like how zoomed in or whatever to preview it. But all of this code here, I did not write. I like literally pasted it after like just throwing some blocks on a page. So while it looks terrifying, like you don't really need to know at all what that is. Now there's some caveats. I did go in and escape all of the headings because one thing about block patterns is they aren't translated, like HTML files don't have the same kind of translation availability as a PHP file, but you can go and escape some of these text parts. Like if you look at line 11, there's a heading there and you can see some PHP sneaking in there, and the heading would be our team, and then you have that string there. I don't even know all the technical terms of it. I just paste things. I'm a paster. I'm a professional paster. So that's one of the caveats is the translation. Another one is if you're using images in block patterns, you want to make sure you figure out how to reference them locally, if it's for your own theme, like locally, so that if you're working locally, you don't want to like refer to your local URL pattern. You'll have to like go get SVGs, get file contents. I don't even remember. I would just have to open a previous file and paste what I did last. But there's lots of resources there for that. Patterns are saved, again, as the HTML file, and they are put into a folder called patterns. Again, the full site editing requires that specific structure. But you can see here on my sidebar, on top it says patterns with a little drop down there. And then those are all the patterns I have in my little starter theme here. That top one, all patterns, we'll take a look at later. I think it's clever because like most of the patterns in here are all in there. So if you want to create a page with all of the patterns you make, you can make one pattern that has all of them. So you don't have to like manually add each pattern to test it, which is great until you update a block pattern, and then you have to do it all over again because block patterns aren't good for updating. We'll save that for later. Here's what the block pattern inserter looks like. Remember how I said that the categories, these are the categories my custom theme has registered. There's more now, but custom is the one I threw everything in. It helps a lot when you're like working on a client site to have like an all, especially if you don't have that many, because then they can just go to the one that they know is built specifically for them. All right, so you might be asking, well, when do I use block patterns? The template parts can only be used in those like super reusable areas of a website. You can't put a template part mostly in the content area. Like if you're making a page, there's no template part insertion. They're not in the block inserter. So those are only for those, you can only place those template parts in template files. Block patterns, though, you can place anywhere, including in the template part file or in a template part in the site editor, in the content, anywhere you want. However, once you place that block pattern on a page, it is no longer linked in any way to the file that it was created in. So if your client, if you're doing this for a client and they're like, you know what, the spacing's all wrong. It's just not, it's just too tight. Everything's too tight. We need more space. I need more space. Well, you saw all those padding, the CSS custom variables with like top padding of 30 and side padding of 60 or whatever that was. All of those will have to be manually updated on every page that that block was placed on. So if you want to use block patterns, please do so at your own risk, knowing there's no global way to update the style of some of that, which is why on the bottom it says mostly. There's like one tiny little caveat that we'll get into. So I was so excited about block patterns, so excited because I loved reusable blocks, but like not having that content editable was like a bummer. And then they came out with block patterns like, oh, content's editable, but now the structure of the block is no longer like controlled by one source. It's just everywhere. So when should you use them? Rapid prototyping. If you're making a quick little site for a WordPress Naperville meetup demo, if you want to just test out the look of it, because you're really, I mean, you don't have to actually make it into a block pattern. You just make blocks in the editor and sort of group them. You can paste it into a block pattern file. It takes like 2 extra seconds, and then you can have that in version control to show like, this is where I started. The only place I now feel comfortable using block patterns is if you place it in the template part, because once it's in that template part, it is now controlled through that file, which I think would receive those updates. We'll have to test that. So let's try reusable blocks. Now, like I mentioned, reusable blocks was sort of similar to the block pattern, except for you create a block that you make once, you use it anywhere you want. And then if you need to update something, you edit it in one place and it pushes that update everywhere. So if you wanted like a new phone number, like say the administrator left and you want to redirect calls to a different phone number, this is perfect. Like you update that phone number in one place and it goes to every block that's using, or every page or post that's using that block. Awesome. But if you wanted like that whole style from the reusable, like there's no like good way to like copy that pattern, but maybe you have a bunch of different types of content, a bunch of different promos or whatever, those would all be like separate reusable blocks. And then if you want to change the look of those, you'd have to edit the style however you see fit on each of the blocks. So it's like, it solves a different problem. To create a reusable block, sort of, that's not the same. You make it, I always recommend making it in the editor first. So in this example here, I'm just making a reusable block out of these buttons for some reason, because I was just quickly making a demo. When you open that little kebab menu, that's like a magic menu, everything's in there. There's a menu option there for create reusable block. It has those diamonds. Once you do that, it automatically becomes the reusable block and gets that purple color. That's to warn everyone, hey, this is a special block. It might be used in more than one place. There's several ways to edit that block once you have created that block. I recommend like trying to like finish everything about the block before it becomes a reusable block, because editing it is kind of it's kind of a bigger pain than some of the other blocks to get to. One of the ways is if the block is placed somewhere like you see here and you have it highlighted, there is an option in that magic kebab menu that you can go and manage reusable blocks. You can do it that way. There's also an option in the inserter. Once you have saved one reusable block on your site, you automatically get this fourth icon now on the top of the inserter. So you have patterns. Oh my gosh, I can't see. Block media. Oh, I need glasses. And then the diamond icon. That's the reusable block. They must have run out of room for more words. You click on that, and if you can see the bottom of your screen, which I again often miss, there is a button on the bottom of that panel that says manage reusable blocks. You may go there. Yeah, so you know that might be a very good option as well. And then once you click there, this is before I made the second one, so that's why there's only one here. You can see a very familiar WordPress dashboard admin interface. Looks a lot like the Pages view. I don't know why, and smarter people might be able to tell me this, why it's not like in with the template and template parts menu. Like it feels like it's more of a global thing that you would maybe be able to edit there. Maybe that's the plan. You can export reusable blocks to use them elsewhere. If you have like a local site that you're working back and forth in, you can import JSON, reusable blocks here as well. But once you open it, it'll just be that block in like a WordPress page looking editor environment. So when should you use reusable blocks? if you're adding the same content to like the same block or group of blocks, you can use them in a reusable block. If it's going to save you time if it's always the same. So like contact CTAs, if people leave and you need again to put different people, like the contact person's profile there, it's nice to be able to do that one place if it's on several pages. Event teasers, testimonials, registration links, promotions, etc. Anytime you have like a thing that's on more than one page that will always have the same info. It can change, but that change means it changes everywhere. You can change it frequently, but it's going to change everywhere that block is used. Yes. Mm-hmm. That is in the, well, I guess there's manage. I know if you are in, I believe you can convert to regular block. There you go, right underneath there. So then if you can convert it to regular block, make a change, save it as a reusable block if you want like one variation off. But again, like if you wanted like both of those blocks to have like the same background, gradient, image, something or other, like those things aren't linked anymore. You would have to edit both of those separately. All right, so this one I am unqualified to talk about. I don't know if Claire wants to jump in here. I have a slide if you want to talk through it. So if you, like me, have a problem with block patterns on client sites that, they're not like going to fully approve everything before all content gets added. And if you think your needs are like a little more varying than using a reusable block, and if you want to use the same thing in areas that aren't template parts, then maybe you want a custom block. And a custom block provides special functionality, either special functionality that a WordPress core block doesn't give you, or it provides a very customized editor workflow for the editor experience. So it depends on like, if you're your own user, maybe you don't need a custom block if you know how all the bobbles work in WordPress. But if you have a client that is never going to understand why they have to hit full width on a block and then put a paragraph, put it in a group so that you can align it to the rest of the text while the next block will go a line wide. Like if you don't want to explain all this, you can certainly create custom blocks that have a lot of these like predefined groups of things and settings. But it's more work, it's more coding knowledge. I think you have to know JavaScript and React to be able to do it. I'm sure there's plugins that will help you out quite a bit. I have not used those. Anytime we've ever needed a custom block, my friend Claire here has been a hero in that. So this is just one example of a custom block that had like super specific CSS needs for that like cutout there and for it to like scale appropriately. And we wanted to make sure we limited the amount of text that would be there and made sure like the icon's always there. So the only thing they can really change is they can upload an image. It gets like sized and cropped automatically. They can change that heading and they can change the button label and link. It's saved as a custom block. Do they always get saved to widgets or did we just like put it there? See, like this is how much or how little I know. Okay, so all of our custom blocks are in widgets. But you may choose a different place in the inserter if you wish. I imagine we also choose the icon. Yes, okay, good choice on some of these icons, Claire, well done. And you can provide a little description, again, helpful for your editor to be able to know what this is, because we're not getting a preview. I don't know if that's because we didn't provide a preview or if custom blocks don't get one. This is, again, not my area of specialty. Oh, hey, look, I left text there from before. So the second half of this gets a little more scattered as we get closer to the meeting. Yeah, get the bunny out. this may go down a rabbit hole. We will spend an entire meetup talking about theme.json. So we're not going to do that today. But what you need to know is theme.json is a file in a block theme that controls a lot of the settings, a lot of the configuration, a lot of the things that are needed to make this new site editing type of experience work. And I've learned the more you can use the theme.json file the way WordPress wants you to use that file, you have a lot less hiccups. So if you are a CSSer and you choose to write a lot of your styles in a style sheet like myself, sometimes it feels like you're having a battle with, say, a premium parent theme. But instead of battling the theme, you're battling WordPress. There are things that we'll go over in a second here too that they've added that makes this even more obvious. So I highly recommend embracing theme.json. Don't try to do all the fancy things I like to do in my CSS files with all my custom properties and making this obscure mappings to different properties. It might not pay off for you. I like to keep everything dry. Theme.json, you just can't do some of the things that CSS can do, including media queries. So if you're trying to target different sizes of screens, WordPress certainly will stack things like in a columns block when the screen gets small. But you have one option, and that option is whatever they choose of when it stacks. And you can't say, well, actually, I want this to go to, 2 columns. I want this top grid cell to expand the whole thing. And then you can't do that with theme.json. You can do that CSS. So I know that like the goal is to get rid of some of the styling in CSS, but they will have to try it out in like cold dead hands before I give it up. But there's really cool things that theme.json does, especially with like spacings, and they do give you a way to use fluid typography now. I think it used to be like all set in like one unit. Now you can use a whole number of units. Let's just take a brief look here. I collapsed all of these sections to not overwhelm anybody, but basically a theme.json is very particular about formatting any JSON file. You have to have commas when there's something after it and no comma if there's not something after it. But it will tell you when it doesn't like what you've done. Version 2 at the top is something that's required because this is version 2 of the theme.json editing experience, however you want to call that. And let's get into let's just look at one piece of this. Now, theme.json will sit at the root of your theme folder. And things that I found were very cool was this spacing scale, which, so if you declare a spacing scale, this is what's going to show up when, say, you have a block that has access to like padding or margin or whatnot. Now, you can say, you know what, I don't want to give you all of those sizes. I want you to figure it out. But what I want is, I want 9 steps, I want 9 sizes, and I want the medium-ish size to be like 1.25, and you look at line 85 rems, just a magical unit that you don't really need to know what a rem is. 1.25 is a good medium size, and then it's going to take that number of steps and increment it by 1.35%, I guess, I don't know, multiplies it. Or whatever operator you have there. I'm jumping around in all these lines, but it spits out 9 sizes that you can use for like spacing. It shows up as, if you have less than 5, it will show up as like actual like buttons that you can say, like, it will say like extra small, extra, or whatever, small, medium, large, extra large. If you have more than 4 or 5, it shows up in that vertical drop down where it will say like default and then whatever, extra small, whatever. You can give each size a name, but if the more you can go with just whatever WordPress wants, the better. So that's where this comes into play, is when you have a list of sizes, except for font sizes. That's later. Yes. You can be very global in general, like this is very global. This is just a setting up all scale, except for font size. But you can also set like a different size allowance for different blocks specifically. But yeah, this the default one's good for me. You can also tell JSON which units you want to show up in the editor. So if you don't want your client still using pixels or points or anything else, you can just say use rems. Because who really knows what a pixel is either? It's just a term that people get familiar with. Why not get familiar with the fantastic rems or the viewport width or percentile? Rem probably. I mean, it depends. I use a lot of kelp, so it kind of, I use weird statements, which I'll show you in a little bit. But then WordPress recently made it available to have fluid typography, which means you can say line 91 fluid through, and this allows you to define your font sizing in a different way other than just like one run. So if you see on line like 94 through 100, you'll see I have defined a font size named extra small. The size is sort of 0.9 runs when it can be, but then you can give it a minimum and a maximum, and it will not go below 0.9 and it will not go above 1.1, but it allows it to scale with your browser so that you don't have to write media queries for every time you want like different size text as you scale whatever device you're using. Sometimes you want things to appear larger though, not smaller as you get on a smaller screen. And this still doesn't really take into account like the system overall. Yes, it can scale proportionally, but sometimes like a menu, you need a bigger touch target. So that needs to scale larger than like body copy that might also shrink with the browser. But this is a huge step forward to what we were using. Now, all of those font sizes that are defined are also, again, if you only define a few, they'll just be buttons in the font size editor. If you define a bunch like I did, it will be a drop down. And we can take a look at that. Gosh, this is so long, I'm sorry. Style book is the big new feature of 6.2 for anybody who cares about layout, or not layout, like design. I don't know. I don't even know how I feel about it. But it lets you like visualize design changes, preview them before you like commit to them. So I think it works probably a lot better when you're starting a new site, because I don't think anyone's going to want to like make this big of a global change. But I thought Divi folks might like this because you can change a style and apply it globally to elements. Now, like I said before with the block patterns, when you insert it, it is always that, and you can't change it. But like if there's a button in that block pattern, or one of those like 4 WordPress blocks, not like a group of things, you can't change like layout sizes and spacing and stuff. But if there's a button or a heading or whatever, those can be updated through this method using style book. I think we might just jump over to this instead of looking at that screen. How do I get there? Hey there. Now I have to change how this is not going to work. I can't mirror my screens anymore. I have to like, I can't arrange them. I have to mirror. How do I do that? Can I just switch. Is there a way like mirror? Ugh. Oh, really? The range? I can't, like on top, like above it? I can't. Wait, drag them to mirror displays, hold option while dragging it on top of, okay. No, oh man, and that's really weirdly sized. That's okay. We're going to get rid of all the things that we don't need. Okay. That's stupid thing. I wish we could make this small. Can you make that smaller somehow? Get away, Zoom. No way to minimize. Hide video, hide floating meeting controls. Boom. Okay. This is a little demo site I threw together. It's using kind of like a starter theme. We could talk about theme relationships, whether you should be using a parent-child, but I don't think we have enough time. Once you're in the editor, if you click on anywhere in the page area and you get your sidebar, that styles icon is on top. And it confuses me because when I click on a block, the styles icon is here. I'm so used to going up here for the gear. I constantly click this and I go to this like global styles, but I don't know I'm really in the global styles. So that interface I kept messing up on. But once you click on the styles panel in the editor, and there's this new icon, this little eye, and that opens the style book, where it gives you all of these WordPress core blocks in different, variations, all the heading levels, and a lot of the blocks that a lot of people don't think about when they create their theme. I find that the text and design tabs are going to be the more useful ones for me. I wonder if they'll ever have like abilities to add like custom placeholder content, because this is not how I use a group. I mean, yeah. Yeah. And so I was playing around earlier with these buttons here. The individual button here, again, the interface is sort of like, and it shows me I have a variation, this outline variation. I couldn't really get that one to work. Before we do anything, I should show you what it looks like before we make changes. There's another page here. I gotta find the other page. Like a buttons page. There it is. All right. So, okay, this is also kind of weird. If I place a button and don't click anything, button, as in when I have the side panel open and I go to the Styles tab, I have two options. One is default and one is outline. This is the one I selected for outline. And this is the one I've selected to be the default. But if I just don't click anything, it doesn't add this class automatically, like is style fill. So I get this like other button here that is now controlled with that style guide. But because I styled these buttons in CSS with all of the WordPressy classes, all of my theme.json style tokens, I used all of their naming conventions, right? Now, when we go to edit a style book button, we go to design. They were all black before, but I edited this one here. And now I made it that dark rose color or whatever. I never remember how to get there. I gotta actually go, not to the buttons group. I wish that said like buttons group instead of buttons. I don't know why. Button, singular, I can go to color. And if I click palette, that's the wrong place to click. That just shows me what colors I have, not what colors I can apply right now. Hey, testing. If anyone wants me to QA, happy to do so. You can add a palette there. It's just not where I would expect to add a palette to my theme, like a color to the palette. Yeah, right. So instead, if I want to change the button color, I would have to skip over that colorful box that says palette. And if this were just default, it doesn't show any color. So you could easily miss that, right? So if I'm looking for color, I'm probably going to click on the thing with all the colors. Anyhow, if I read for like one moment, I would see I could choose. I would actually change the background color so that we can see the changes made. Okay, and then I'm going to also invert the text because that would not be accessible. All right, so now on, ooh, I wonder, is that, I just changed, did I just, no. So I changed, oh wait, so this is weird. Okay, so I clicked on button to make those changes, right? Yeah. And the button's updated, but the button didn't. If I hit save, it will do that whole like, are you sure you want to, this is a global thing, right? And so I'm changing all the buttons on the site, not the style variation outline one. That one I would have had to have clicked into here. Let's just do that. Let's see what happens. And I'm only going to change the text of the outline button to this rose. Now, what does a button need in order for people to know that you're interacting with a button? A hover state. Sure, it's in progress, but currently states are something that are hard. And so there is link states. We have those. So I do know that button states will soon be with us as well. But until then, this is sort of an inaccessible way to edit that design element. All right, so let's go back here and we're going to refresh. I did sort of make a change by adding that button again. However, this is that default button, and now it has accepted that blue background. I can't tell if that's blue type, but probably. Yeah. Okay. The outline variation, did I actually save it and apply? I think I did, right? And all I did was change the text color, but you'll notice that is not here. And that is because I have CSS that is probably at the same specificity. It is, I know it is. It is at the same specificity level, but because their styles load before mine, which is good, which is what I would want, my styles that I have specified in the CSS file are being the ones used. Now, before I made any of those changes, I made this button a while back with all of the overrides. Like I overrode it in the editor here, and I can't tell if that took any of the style change because it was already light blue with blue text. But it, you know, some things I don't know if it like only applies the thing you changed. Maybe if there's something that didn't change, like border, like would it still apply that? Like does it apply to just not the overridden properties, or does it just not apply anywhere because they know you've edited that? That's one thing I don't quite know here. It's going to take some more time playing with it, but I'm like sort of airing my grievances in hopes that someone's going to tell me how I'm using it wrong. So if anyone knows some of those answers, I am certainly all ears.
You're out on the frontier edge here.
But my Q button hover saves works pretty well. Let's see about this one. No. Hey, but that's because there's still a hover theme, a hover state style in my theme. I just couldn't add one to override it in the site editor. We also said we were going to look at, this is a super handy one. I know we use this all the time. Like we sometimes want to include the H1 like in the page content area for reasons. Maybe it's part of a block pattern that we have like a few things all grouped with a background hero image or whatnot. So sometimes themes will have like a checkbox in the settings that say like hide title. Well, you can do that in the site editor now by making like a copy of the page template and just deleting the header, like in the outline here in this post content area. It used to be, you know, post title and then information, and just delete that post title, and you can add your own now when you want to make a page from the no title template.
So then when you are creating that page, it would be a title in the template drop down when you go to edit the page.
So I would so if I make a page with this template, are you saying? Yeah. So if I make a page with the no title template, it will not show the title. The title will show up in WordPress, but it won't display on the, I think. Actually, I don't know. So yeah, you need a title. Oh wait, I'm not using template, page template. So yeah, so in the page attributes, which is where it's always been, if you were ever going to change, yeah. But there's so many things that are similar in this new way that I think people like just aren't like equating the one-to-one relationship, but they're like very similar in some ways. This is one of them. So no title. You can also jump to the template editing from this modal. Maybe not the most obvious way, and it's certainly hidden. So even though I have no title, I'm still going to say Stacy title. Hi. I'm going to publish this. The page still needs to know what to call it because it needs to have a URL. By default, it will just use whatever you have in the title there. So even though it does display my title on the front end, it won't. So what that allows me to do is use some sort of fancy, is there a question in Zoom? Okay. Okay, so if I wanted to instead use, well, we'll just use this and we'll pretend this is like such a better headline. I can like bump this up to an H1. And so now semantically, that will be my, actually, I gotta move that high down. There, update. There's my H1. What is this using? I know someone was asking about columns earlier. Here's your column. Probably not nearly as flexible as Elementor, as in when I look at my options, I can say how many, but I cannot, what can I? Can I say like the first one should be 60%? I don't think I have that option yet. I think all columns are equal still. Oh no, look. See? I rarely ever use columns, but I find the group with a little bit of CSS magic usually does what I need because of the responsiveness. I can tell it when to stack and how to stack, as opposed to using just default columns. It tells me when it's going to stack and how. So that is why I typically do not use columns. We also said I wanted to show that cool block pattern real quick. Add new. So another fun, quick way to preview all of your patterns in one place is to grab that block pattern with all of them in there. So cool. And it's like 4 lines of code. If I show you all patterns, you just, I mean, again, I'm not writing this from scratch, although it's not like too terrible. You just need to know that last part here is the thing that changes on all of them. And it's whatever slug you gave it here that is what is going down here. That's a quick way to, you can either create pages that way if you want to make like a page full of block patterns, which is really, again, not editable. But if you have like a super small site and the client is like happy to just get something up and running, you can make a few of these block patterns with all the pages really saved as a block pattern. And then all they have to do is hit add page about, series of block patterns, and there you have it. I have a lot of other stuff in this theme that people do not need, but at Oddbird, we over-engineer everything. So that's what happens. In a good way, the best way possible. Yeah. I did say we would discuss like how to move forward with themes, but again, I think like super past two, I don't find much need for that parent-child theme anymore. I think there's going to be this weird transition where like people are like, oh, you could design everything in the browser, but like it's not going to look good. Like you're still going to need like some design sense. And that's why I think like block pattern library might come into more play there for people who don't like have a full design aesthetic already developed. They could certainly use those. And that's not even like going out and getting a full theme. Like you could use the default theme, grab a bunch of block patterns. And the theme is really going to sort of provide some of those template things that you can then go edit in the editor. And then you can customize pretty much everything else. Like I don't know what a theme would update in order for me to make sure I want to still have that connection as a parent-child to stay with that theme. Like, so when I forked Brian's theme, I got rid of a lot of things. Sorry, Brian, not because I didn't think they were lovely, just because I didn't need everything that you had available. And like, I know that he came out with an update just like this week, but I don't know if there's much that I would want or need in there. I know some of the like theme.json new features are probably in there, but yeah, I mean, I don't have I didn't like fork it in a way that I would pull his. It's just like a custom theme now. Like I've rebranded it with all the like demo 23 here. I don't know, like personally feels like you don't really need new themes off like every 4 or 5 years. You just maybe need to like edit some global style element. Like it feels like a very different thing. And that's the thing that I'm having like a weird time wrapping my head around is like, we always had like this, we always figured it out. Like WordPress didn't have everything. And we certainly had like a lot of workarounds. We had short codes. That's why we have all these page builders. But like there became this convention of like the way you write styles in like the most dry sense, like don't repeat yourself sense, is to do it this way. The way you write templates, so you don't repeat yourself, even though there's a lot of repetition in templates, is to make smaller pieces called template parts. And that's where those, came from. Like now I'm not quite sure, like looking at some of these files here, I started ripping out like all of the inline styling, and then you get it in the browser and you're like, oh, but it has no padding, like this stuff. I'm like, ugh. Like if I ever want to change that to something other than this very specific 80, I have to do it on every page that uses this. And that's why I love CSS, because I could have used a class and written it once, but maybe it needs to instead be, it can't be a reusable pattern because there's going to be different portfolio items in here. That's kind of where the custom blocks are coming into play. And if you have anything with dynamic content, probably like this portfolio, the custom block also makes sense there. Yeah, because I don't really know another way to keep things way more editable on a global level when it comes to stuff like this, like styling spacing. You can increase the spacing amount for this 80, but that increases it everywhere else it's used. And maybe you don't want it in between like every heading and button or something, but you do want it like in the like margins or something. Yeah, I don't know why we wanted to get rid of CSS so much, but like, I'm really having a hard time figuring out like, and I despise using spacer elements because that is adding like a div, like a thing that doesn't need to exist into the content of the page. So again, if you ever retheme it or something, you have all these like empty markups that don't mean anything. They're just hanging out there forever. Yeah.
We're doing a discussion.
Oh yeah, we might have to.
Yeah, I have many things to say about this.
Yeah, I mean, we could do a few topics on this, but I don't know how to stop sharing because I hid the controls. All right, wait. Okay. I don't know how often I was like this looking at the camera. Everyone who haven't fallen asleep yet, thanks for joining us. I know I warned Claire, I'm like, it's a lot. And it's like, yeah, maybe boring. And it's a lot of like jargon. And that's what we've been like struggling with. Like, it's a lot of similar jargon, but for some reason, like with block and pattern and template and part and custom block and block pattern, like it's just like, it's hard to keep everything straight and what's what. And I'm not, this isn't a complaint. It's just like, it's, you know, changed. It's getting used to the way things are done now, which I think is a really good step forward for the most part. And I'm really proud of WordPress, and they are like full steam ahead. And they're like, it feels like not the same WordPress that's like everything has to be compatible with version 1.0. Like it's nice to see us like move forward. There's just the things I go figure out is like what's that new workflow look like, and like if you're building a site for like a client, like what is that future proof way of doing it, like using WordPress for stuff sometimes even like changes since everything's changing so fast. So it's like what's that balance of like how much you want to like, you want to stick to a classic theme. Like we've been having a lot of success doing classic, but like adding all that we can of the full site editing stuff in there. The only thing we haven't really touched is like headers and like the templates themselves, but we have all of the access to almost all of the other features that a full site a block theme would provide. I'm not going to be able to get used to that easily. But I've also started using just straight up full site editing themes as well. And so far it's gone well, but I'm also cheating and I'm using my CSS. And then when the style book came out, I was like, let's take a look. And I'm like, oh no, like maybe I'm going to have to change the way I write my CSS. Am I sharing that?
No.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Is that not? Oh, only people in the room can see that.
Right.
Sorry, people on Zoom. I don't know if anyone wants to see this. I mean, it is. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's it. Unless we want to like do a short Q&A with people on the phone or something, and then
Ask people any questions.
yeah. I have notes. I'll provide the slides and whatever links I mentioned from before.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, hang on one second.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. That was pretty intense, but that's where WordPress is right now, kind of a giant mishmash of things for different people, for different technical abilities who are doing different things with it for different sorts of clients. So it's kind of a choose your own adventure of which of these new features you want to use and which you want to just completely ignore. Next month is our WordPress 20th anniversary party here in the room at 166, room 166 at NIU, with cake and snacks and WordPress swag. So we'll see you in person next month. Bye. Thanks for coming, everyone on Zoom. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay.